Freemasonry, speculative Freemasons. We are not operative Masons. We are speculative. I mean, I took a demit. I'm not really technically not really a Mason anymore. I don't pay dues or anything like that. But I entered once, so it's like I know all the things about it. I'm not at liberty to talk about a lot of that kind of stuff anyway. But what I can tell you is that there are 3 degrees in Freemasonry. There's only 3 that actually really count. So you get your first degree,
just like Burns.
Yeah, and you undergo your second degree, and then you undergo the 3rd degree, and that makes you a Master Mason. So,
and how long does this process take?
It took me about 6 months.
Oh, dang!
Yeah, it's like one of those speed
not
colleges.
Like Eagle Scouts or nothing. Like
no, there's no badges to earn or anything else like that.
Is that where the idiom of like giving somebody the 3rd degree comes from?
Sure does.
Wow.
That's also where the term blackballing comes from. Is that
like the fairy?
Is that if we have to vote on whether somebody can join our lodge or not, and so when we vote, there are black balls. There's white balls and black balls. There's sometimes it's different. There's white cubes and black balls.
Like
in case
reach into a bag and reveal. Like that's how the secret vote's conducted.
What happens is that you walk up to a thing and you're supposed to grab either a white cube or a black ball and put that in as your vote. And then what happens is they look through the thing, and if there are black balls in there, then it's like, oh, somebody here has a problem with this person joining the lodge. We should not let them. We should not initiate them because there's somebody here who's going to have a problem with them.
A white cube or a black ball.
Because if you're hard of vision, right?
Yeah.
It's so that you can distinguish by feel.
Yeah.
Wow. But so you could pick up your bag and see a bunch of rounds and go, oh no, like.
It's. I mean, we don't do it through a bag. Like they don't come around to you. Like I don't think I'm giving anything away by being like you walk up to a ballot box and then there's a whole bunch of that stuff and you secretly get in front of the entire lodge, but secretly they don't see your hands moving inside the box and you basically pick a thing up and you can see what you're doing.
No one can see what your hands do when you're a Freemason.
Sorry?
No one can see what your hands do when you're a Freemason.
Exactly, right?
Out of curiosity, what's in the box?
Pain.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah. And fear?
No, that's the mind killer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fear is the mind killer.
That's right.
Thousands of kittens who bite your hands, right?
Yeah.
Right. Spiders. I thought it was spiders.
So
yeah, that's right. We put spiders in the box last time.
So now this is the other thing, is that in Canada, we have, there are different, what we call concordant bodies, which is where the 33rd degree Mason thing comes in. Do you know what Shriners are?
Kind of. They have fezzes and they drive around in tiny cars.
Correct.
Only as their parade incarnations.
Exactly. Yeah. Shriners are the Masons who tend to want to have an awful lot of fun. They like to party, they like to do fun things, and they like to raise a whole bunch of money for their hospitals for sick kids, kind of like what we're doing here, right? Just a different means of benefit.
Are we Masons now?
We're not Masons now, no.
Okay.
I believe the 3 of us would not be allowed.
No. Much more stringent, I'm sure, evaluation to get into this lodge than is to get in some of the other lodges I've seen. But Shriners are a concordant body. You can't be a Shriner unless you're a Freemason first. There's a rite called the Scottish Rite, RITE is what they call them. So rites. So there's the Scottish Rite. The Scottish Rite starts at degree 4 and goes up to the 32nd degree. And then if you once you've gone through all of those extra degrees to get to 32, you've gone through things of different initiations into different degrees. You listen to different stories. You have to remember different things. And there's all kind of stuff you have to do, testing, all that kind of stuff. But when you make it through to 32, that generally means you've gone quite high. You've listened to the stories. You've learned about whatever. The 33rd degree is a honorary degree bestowed upon people in the Scottish Rite that have done an awful lot of good for the group themselves. And you don't get to just join the 33rd degree because somebody decides they're going to put you in there. There's processes of voting and vetting and all those kind of things. And I think there's only a set number that can actually, at least in Canada, I heard there was only a set number of 33rd degree Masons that you would actually have in the Scottish Rite. I think it's 33 just because the numbers make sense.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it is one of those things where it's like, we only do that because it's for people who are who are to be lauded for doing particularly great things, and that we want to honor them in that way. But there's also a thing called the Royal Arch, which is another concordant body, and it also has a 4th degree, and it has, I think, like another. It goes up to like 10 or 12 or something like that. And so they I can't remember exactly, but the Royal Arch is a different concordant body where you go through all the a bunch of other like stories and people acting out skits and stuff to try to teach lessons and readings, and there's all these other things you have to do.
About
And then
what?
Sorry?
About what? Like, what are these
I-
stories and skits? Like, is it
I think
like
I
is it
know.
historical or are they moral lessons? Like, what is the content of these? Are you allowed to say?
I want
I
to hear what
think-
Carrie has to say.
I think I know.
Okay.
I think it's the skit that you do at camp where you take a little Debbie roll
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
and oh geez, I can't remember how all of it goes. You
How
end up
does it
stepping
end?
Yeah, you end up stepping on a little Debbie roll and then eating it and pretending it like it's scatological.
Oh, okay. That sounds like
In
something Beej would
nature,
do. Sure.
yeah.
Okay.
That sounds like camp. Yep.
This is one of those
Yeah.
vague memories from church camp floating to the surface again. And
Yeah.
I assume that's part of the skits that you learn in the Freemasons as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The skits are largely they're based around they're based around Christianity more often than not. They're based around a lot of like legend and religion and a lot of moral teachings and a lot of stuff like that.
Mhm.
A lot of like Old Testament and New Testament stuff all kind of integrated into that. And because
Yeah.
that was how, but that's in those rites. The core of Freemasonry is that they're like, we're not interested in your religion. What we're interested in is, do you believe in a supreme being?
Mm.
And so that could be anything as long as it passes muster. Is how that. It's like one of the 3 questions they ask you if you're going to join. So I'm not going to get into the rest of them, but you'd have to go talk to a Freemason and they'll be
But
happy
they
to tell
wouldn't
you.
talk to me because I'm a woman, though.
That's correct. You don't get to join Freemasonry. You can join the Order of the Eastern Star as an adult woman.
Cool.
That is your body. The men have their body.
I believe the last time
It's also super weird because the Order of the
I-
Eastern Star also has to have a man sitting in their
Yeah.
lodge with them, and I'm like, I
Of
don't like
course
that
they do.
very much.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
That's
I
tradition.
believe
They all-
you have to be related to a Freemason or something. At
Oh,
least
so
there
you
was
can
like there
come
was
to
a
the
rule
Mason
like that
parties.
the last
Yeah.
time
Yeah.
I
Oh,
understood all this, but
apparently there are Freemasonry lodges that do accept women. So cool.
yeah,
That's
this
great.
is
All right.
this is older information. Beej has not been
I have not been a Mason
Uh,
since my
correct.
20s, essentially.
For a
so
while.
yeah.
Yeah.
but that was the last I'd heard. I'm not interested in joining such a thing anyway.
Yeah. Well, and
no,
Beej,
but
why
I'm
did
offended
you?
I wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah. No. Exactly. Just the principle of it. What sort of compelled you to join? Like.
I had a friend of mine who was interested in joining, and so then he did, and we got
Mhm.
talking to him about it, and he's like, it's really interesting because there's lots of like the stuff that goes on is very, very interesting. And I said, so yeah, but you have to like, there's all these things you have to know somebody or like whatever. It's like, no. I didn't know anybody who was in a lodge when I joined. People tend to join because they know somebody, and they join a lodge as somebody they know. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. You have to be related, and it's like, no, you don't have to be related to anybody at all to join the Freemasons. That's not how that works. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's just how that is. But he would talk about it every so often, and I found it really fascinating. And so I was like, oh, well, is there all this like, what about all the conspiracy stuff about, oh, they run the world, whatever? He's like, no, that has to do with the fact that a lot of the founding fathers were also Freemasons, because a lot of founding fathers apparently were also deists. They might not have been specifically like Christians, but they
Yeah,
were deists at least, and so that kind of
yeah.
fit their thing. And there's all the iconography that you see in like early American folklore and stuff like that. A lot of that is stuff that also comes from Freemasonry and whatnot. There's a lot of influence there, and because it came out of that. And so people are like, oh my God, they secretly run the country. And it's like, no, God, no. It's hard to get people to just walk around and pick up stuff on the side of a highway. Don't
Right.
worry about us trying to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
run a country.
Patriarchy
So-
runs the country, but a single fraternal organization doesn't
Yeah.
get to claim that.
No,
So you're
exactly.
telling me that as a Freemason, you are not a keeper of the secret of the Holy Blood and the Holy Grail from that
Don't even
book
know.
that Dan Brown plagiarized. So you don't know the identity
Right.
of the descendants
Yeah,
of
did
Christ
Dan Brown
who hold
plagiarize
his
you?
blood.
I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
whole bunch of stuff Dan Brown wrote that has nothing to do with Freemasonry, but
There
it
was
makes a
this-
good book.
There was
Wow.
this book written in the 80s called Holy Blood, Holy Grail
Yeah.
that was
yeah.
basically the very dry template for Dan Brown's stuff. And somehow my brother convinced me to read part of it. It was
Ah.
no.
ridiculous. It's like the Rosicrucians, and there's a church in England at the 33rd parallel, and this painting with the Arcadian thing written on it.
I once watched a video on YouTube about a guy who went on about the conspiracy of the Freemasons. And my favorite thing about his video was he talked about the 360 degrees of masonry there was, because it forms a circle in the end. And it was not a parody piece.
But I mean, I learned a lot of interesting, like there's a lot of things that just kind of
Carrie might be talking about Foucault's pendulum.
Okay, yeah, there you go. There's a lot of like just interesting things that I had no idea. For example, there's something called Prince Hall Masonry, because Masonry, by and large, especially in the United States, was a lot of white men who were joining those lodges.
Say,
yeah,
wow.
and
this
in and around,
organization that all of our founders joined was a bastion for white men.
absolutely, a lot of white men.
Oh my God, I'm scandalized.
Who were all
Never
very
would
much
have
like,
thought
hey,
that.
you know, all men are equal and all men are the same before the lodge. And if you come into the lodge, anybody can go through the ranks and become a master mason. You can become the worshipful master of a lodge. You can do all the other kind of things in there. But man, it's just always seems to be a lot of white guys. Why is that? Well, nobody seems to be letting all of these non-white people into the lodge. What are they going to do? And so Prince Hall Masonry was founded by a lot of black men who wanted to join Freemasonry. And if I might be getting this a little bit off the story, but yeah, they ended up forming their own offshoot of that. And that's always been a thing, because that meant that the organizing Grand Lodge, they call it, that kind of looks like a district, essentially, to be like, oh, well, Alberta has a Grand Lodge. It's just to look after all the lodges that exist in Alberta. Their thing is that we can't recognize any of the Prince Hall Masonic lodges, because the rituals they practice, the work that they do, we call it work, right? Where you walk around the lodge and you say things and whatever. The work that they do is not the same as the work that we do, and so we can't recognize it, because the two things don't line up with each other, because they end up making their own rituals and their own things, their own rites. And it's like, so we can't actually put this together. Even if people now are like, we should let them join the Grand Lodge and do whatever. It's like, yeah, but we literally can't. And it's like, oh my God.
But we do that with churches too, right? There's like different
like women in the
brands
priesthood.
of it.
Yeah.
So
There's also like Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in America.
Oh yeah.
Especially in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucks.
Yeah.
Big time.
So
But,
it's definitely like there was a lot of I learned a lot of interesting things being in the Masons, and coming out of when I left because it was like, well, I enjoy the fellowship, but because I'm not going to my mother lodge anymore, the one where I got initiated, went through whatever, and got to know everybody over the course of a few years. When I started going, we moved from city to city, and I'm like, I'm going to other lodges, and I'm just like, I don't feel like I belong here, because I don't know the work they practice. Sometimes the work they practice is pretty loose, and I'm like, we were really strict about our work, and you guys are a little loose about how you do your stuff around here. I'm not really into that. Or the only lodge I could find was practicing not the Canadian rite, but they were practicing the ancient rite, and I was kind of like, the ancient rite is not one that I practice, so I have to learn all the new things that you guys do. So that's a little weird. And then when we moved out here to Victoria, I tried going to a lodge out here, and I was like, okay, younger crowd probably too. Maybe I'll meet people that I understand. We'll try this. And I went one night, and I was just like, we're done. Okay, I don't feel like I can do this anymore. I don't feel that I'm welcome doing this stuff. And not because any of the people are bad or wrong, just because I'm like, I don't feel like I am ever going to get to know
like everything you describe is just church to me. It's people go to church as a way to find community and people to be with, and if they move towns and they have to go find another one, and it's weird because they're different, or they can't find people they like there,
one that fits them. And to clarify, chat, I didn't mean that Sunday morning is segregated between those who go to church and those who don't. I mean that many churches within the US still maintain very racially divided congregations. Not all of them by any stretch.
Just different styles of ministry.
It's just, especially in the South, there's a lot of churches that have built up with some cultural stuff layered on that keep people in communities with people that they feel comfortable with. And the church doesn't always stretch itself to grow the way that I feel it should into a more diverse congregation.
Yeah.
But I have opinions, and I don't want to talk about them anymore.
Yeah.
Never mind.
You're allowed.
That's,
Yes.
that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah. So yeah, I just I took a demit finally because I was just like, I'm not going to ever go back to my Mother Lodge because I'm living out here now. I'm not really feeling comfortable here. I've been paying my dues to Mother Lodge the entire time, which is great. They would still count me as a member. And then finally I just sent them a letter being like, I'm sorry, I have to demit because it's just not, this isn't working for me where I am. And I've known people who have been like, they did the same thing. They joined in their 20s. They had a great time for a few years and then they like moved around, started doing other things. And so they took a demit. And when they were like more in their like 40s and 50s, they started thinking like, maybe I should join again because I'm settled now and I have some kids or my kids are starting to graduate high school or whatever. And I want to kind of get back into that thing. I know that what my parents did is that when they wanted to have that feeling, they just joined the Kinsman Club, which is a service club in Canada. They joined the Kinsman and they joined the Kinettes and they just did service. And that was how they, and also there was a lot of drinking involved. But
You don't say.
yeah, right. So it's like, but there's a lot of service involved, and they love to do that. And it's like we're gonna build a new ice rink for in Medicine Hat. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that, and they did a whole bunch of good. And I was like, oh, cool. That's your thing you're doing. And I'm like, at what point am I gonna do something like join a service club and raise money for kids who need? Oh, wait. I've been doing it for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
When will you do that, Beej? When will, if ever, will you start joining a club to raise charity money?
Weird that, huh? But I'm like, oh, how about that?
And you're definitely paying your dues.
I like our club better. It's
I do
much
like
more
our club
inclusive.
quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy Zeta a lot.
Yeah.
That's where we are, right?
Yeah.
I'm paying attention, but I've heard some of these words before, so my brain's starting to blend them out.
We've got special rings.
You too.
Yeah, you guys are a
do.
2-person cult.
Oh, mine won't come off. Mine won't come off.
Can't get it to whistle. Oh well.
There we go.
Yeah.
My hands puff up.
Yeah,
when-
where is
when-
is this our lodge that we're in right now? The Zeta Lodge?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we have ritual, right? Like there's things that we do to open the lodge.
Rotate the
Mhm.
cushion. Yeah.
Mhm.
We
And then we
have
go through.
hymns we sing traditionally.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have all sorts of work that we do. We have rituals we have to respect while we're doing them. So it's like, okay, if we're gonna do X, we have to do X. If we're gonna do Y, we have to do Y.
we have a secret
Yeah.
handshake sign thing.
We don't have no. Well, I mean, I guess we do. Actually, yeah, you're right. We do have.
We have a sign.
That's right. It's not terribly secret in that anybody else
Well,
could do it too. But
Yes,
branched
but we're
it out
not-
of camera.
We're not
We're a terrible
terribly
secret society.
exclusive either,
Yeah.
if you've noticed.
yeah,
I like this about us. I like
Yeah.
that we're not exclusive. And
But we do
secretive.
have, comms and broadcasts like pulling the strings behind the scenes as well.
Mhm.
That's true.
So like what level are we really?
I've been at least 5 or 6, my dude.
somebody Waster in chat says touring a historical Masonic lodge. The guide told us that the huge majuscule G is a big G. You'll see that on all the Masonic stuff. There's a big G in the center, hanging from the ceiling in the hall. Just stood for God. Pick a god, any god.
I figured it was for Graham.
Fine.
But
Find the deity. Find the
That's
deity.
it. Can stand for God, any god. Pick a god, any god. It's not talking about the Christian God specifically, but it can stand for God. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only thing it stands for. So don't ever fall for a thing where somebody's like, the only thing that in Freemasonry that this symbol means is this one thing.
Oh, that's
There's
the one thing I know about Freemasons. They love they symbols.
Yeah, symbology
Yeah.
is like way more intense than that. So, yeah.
I just
It's,
caught myself not pressing the gas and like
Mhm.
wondering why the bus was slowing down.
Oh wow, the preview is really
Right.
lagging. Oh no.
yeah, that was where I was. And then I was like, oh, finger not down. Yes, go, finger, go. Press the
Yes.
Z.
I know Ian did definitely want it to stand for Gundam, didn't you?
It also stands for Gatorade.
I'm surprised you're still awake, my dude. I guess you can be because he's staying up. He can stay up a bit later, and that's okay. So nice to see Ian in chat. Say hi.
Somebody
to
woke him
everybody.
up to tell him that
Hi.
you were
Yeah,
desecrating
the
his
signal
apron.
was lit
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
he was here.
He felt someone touch the apron.
That's true. He probably felt somebody touch the apron.
Yeah.
Just woke with a start.
I still have my apron.
I was talking about the Tigger Taylor one.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
But, you know.
It does not make a good way to get
I
hot
don't-
things out of an
Yeah,
oven.
I don't think your Mason apron would be good for
Ian probably
the
could have told
oven.
you that. He's probably tried.
Yeah.